celebrating 48 years on the air. Award-winning Farmweek is a production of Mississippi State University Extension.
Today on Farm Week, we meet the new nominee for Ag Secretary and hear what Mississippi's Ag Commissioner thinks of her. Plus, part one of an encore special report about a balancing act in the Mississippi Delta. In southern gardening, they're not a frozen dessert, but Viola Sorbet flowers tolerate the cold pretty well. And back on our special report, turns out a flood can actually be a good thing. Farm Week starts right now.
Hello everybody, I'm Zach Ashmore.
And I'm Mike Russell. Thank you for joining us once again here on Farm Week. We start with Brooke Rollins, the woman as of the taping of this episode bound for the USDA as Ag Secretary. Not yet confirmed, well on her way. In her nomination hearing, committee members had plenty of questions. She had answers. Peter Tubbs has more.
President Trump's nominee for Secretary of Agriculture appeared for questioning by the Senate Agriculture Committee. Questions on mass deportations and Trump's tariff plans were popular topics.
But when we're talking massive deportation, we're gone beyond dangerous criminals. And I just wonder if we ought to give fair warning to farmers and ranchers across America that if you have immigrant labor, you can expect federal agents to come and search your property. Is that in the future for farmers and ranchers under the mass deportation plan?
Sir, I have not been involved in that. The president's current plan, I cannot answer that one way or the other. I do know that my job is to ensure that as those conversations are ongoing, if confirmed, that I am part of that data collection and understanding, and that the president understands that what this means to our agriculture community. And I believe sincerely that he will execute his agenda that he has promised the American people, but that will never forget our ag community in so doing.
There's a $45 billion trade deficit in ag, $45 billion. And the only way that we can get commodity prices back up is handle that trade deficit. So, that being said, we need dialogue. If confirmed, will you commit on doing dialogue with President Trump and the people around ag to get our farmers an opportunity to have a better price for their crop?
Yes, I will, Senator, and I so look forward to that. I think one of the things I read recently that only 43% of our ag producers are net income positive. That is unsustainable. We have to find a better way, and it can't come always through government subsidies. We've got to expand the market. We've got to figure out input costs. One of President Trump's top priorities was food inflation. Well, this comes before food inflation because this itself will drive the cost of food down if we do our jobs and if we're able to produce for our ag community the way that, Coach, I believe that we can, working together.
And when you get confirmed, and it looks like you will swear an oath to the Constitution of the United States, not to President Trump. So can you say, I know you've said it, but for the Michiganders watching, that you will throw your body in front of the bus to make sure that any political talking point on tariffs that may sound good is actually truly tested against how it will impact our farmers like it was not last time around?
Senator, I appreciate your passion. I share it. And I think we are similar in a lot of ways. And yes, my commitment is that there will be no sleeping, that we will work around the clock to ensure that our ag communities across this country are represented in those discussions and at the table. And I will do everything in my power to elevate, preserve, honor, conserve that backbone of America.
Mississippi Ag Commissioner Andy Gibson listened to Brooke Rollins' nomination hearing. Zach will have his reaction a bit later in the Farm Week market section. In other news, folks in the Mississippi Delta a step closer to a solution to their ongoing flood problems. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers has signed off on environmental concerns about the long-awaited completion of a flood mitigation pump system in the Delta's Yazoo backwater area. A new management plan includes a 25,000 cubic feet per second pumping plant. The project actually began in 1941. but in more recent years has been plagued by lawsuits from environmental groups. And because the project wasn't completed 5 years ago, an historic flood put more than 500,000 acres underwater.
This week, we began an encore special Farm Week report about a precious balancing act in the Mississippi Delta. This report is born out of a collaborative research project years in the making and ultimately looks at how a relatively simple change in ag practices could reap huge benefits to farmers, wildlife, and the environment.
Historically, there have been times when farms and conservation have been at odds.
As humans, we have almost doubled the amount of nitrogen available to the globe.
When it rains, just by the nature of there being more fertilizer on the landscape, the rain can transport that to aquatic systems.
If I can keep my soil in Sunflower County and not send it down to New Orleans, everybody's happier.
Hello, I'm Mike Russell. Welcome to this Farm Week special report. Land in the Mississippi Delta is known for its fertile soil, supplying the nation with food and other agricultural resources. Modern farming practices have graded and fertilized land to precision, creating a perfect mix of soil conditions for growing. But when these soil nutrients escape the land on which they were placed, they can wreak havoc with the environment. In 2018, more than 115,000 metric tons of nitrates flowed down the Mississippi River into the Gulf of Mexico. There they threatened a diverse ecosystem far removed from the flatlands of the Central Delta.
My grandmother's people were some of the first settlers in this area, and really before it was Indianola, I think they called it Sunflower. It was just a small family farm, and it, at that point, was a lot of cows and some row crop. Over the years, my father and the farm labor did a lot of the clearing of the land. He did kind of the original landforming job on a lot of the fields so that he could irrigate. That's been kind of one of the biggest changes, is getting everything land leveled and then precision land leveled. All of this land is precision land leveled.
Hello, I'm Jimmy Sandifer from Belzona, Mississippi, and we farm here corn and soybeans. We have operations for wildlife and conservation. We've been farming all our lives, so that's what we've been doing.
It's a low margin business in the best of times, and when the markets are really low or the weather is really bad, it's a no margin business.
I can say it's not easy in these times. These times are so hard, but it's always been like that. You know, my great uncle farmed, my dad farmed, and I mean, I've heard about these times, so that's why you always try to be prepared. So your your unit sits down on the road.
There's not a producer out there who's not really focused on managing soil, managing water, and all of those elements combine to produce a crop every year. What's important to consider is that a production system and the management thereof is really different for every producer, and that's different based on the resources that are available to them, whether that's financial resources and capital investment, time, equipment, labor, things that all are integral to the production system. And a lot of times those are limiting. Right now, for a producer who also needs to be an engineer and a broker and really innovative in so many ways, making a profit can be tricky and input costs are really high.
So, it's a complicated picture, but one answer just might be simpler than you'd expect. We'll have more on that a little later in the show.
This week in Southern Gardening, a treat of a flower. Violas are similar to pansies. Both flowers like the colder months, but the sorbet viola has a real cool factor going for it too, and it's not just in the name.
When you consider that violas can tolerate the winter weather and can thrive in both the landscape and containers, it's no wonder why they are considered a favorite bedding plant for Mississippi gardeners. Another name for viola is Johnny Jump Up, due to the fact that they are prolific seed producers and seem to pop up in random places in the garden. The Sorbet series is my favorite viola variety. The plants are about 4 to 6 inches tall and wide. When mass planted, they seem to cover the landscape with a floral blanket. Their colorful flowers, displayed above the dark green foliage, really show off. Viola Sorbet XP Deep Orange boasts vibrant, bright orange blooms. You definitely can't miss it in the landscape. Viola Sorbet XP Yellow Jump Up is my favorite with its purple top petals and yellow face with purple lines in the center of the flower. Another beauty, Viola Sorbet XP Delft Blue, has white-faced petals outlined in a bluish-purple color. Its yellow center is surrounded by a blotch of dark purple, making it a truly captivating flower. Violas may have smaller flowers than their cousins, the pansy, but they're probably even tougher and more tolerant of cold winter weather than pansies. Violas are beautiful massed in landscape beds and containers, providing colorful flowers all the way till Easter. I'm Eddie Smith, and I will see you next time on Southern Gardening.
We'll take a break right here, but don't go away. Coming up on our Farm Week feature, more of our special report, Balancing Act. We go deeper into Dr. Jason Hoeksema's collaborative research project along the Sunflower River in the Mississippi Delta. It's a unique way of looking at stewardship, and it's a dialogue between scientists and farmers who are all concerned about water quality and soil. More of Balancing Act. That's coming up on Farm Week. Don't go away.
I believe in people and their hopes, their aspirations and their faith. I believe in my own work and in the opportunity I have to make my life useful to humanity. I believe that education is a lifelong process, and the greatest university is the home. That my success as a teacher is proportional to those qualities of mind and spirit that give me welcome entrance to the homes of the families that I serve. Because I believe these things, I am an extension professional.
I believe in people and their hopes, their aspirations and their faith. I believed that education, of which extension work is an essential part, is basic in stimulating individual initiative, self-determination, and leadership. I believe that these are the keys to democracy and that people, when given facts they understand, will act not only in their self-interest but also in the interest of society. I believe in intellectual freedom to search for and present the truth without bias and with courteous tolerance towards the views of others. Because I believe these things, I am an extension professional.
Time for the market report, a continuation of last week's game.
That's right, Mike. Bullish in the row crop markets, and there's a shakeup at the USDA. We'll get into it. But first, the numbers. What were the week's biggest gains and losses? And then Mississippi Ag Commissioner Andy Gibson gives us an insider's look into the new USDA Secretary and what opportunities may come to the state. So, markets closed the week again on the upswing with just a few exceptions. Let's take a look. The week's biggest gain, sugar, in a turnaround up nearly a cent, and over 4 1/4 increase from the previous week. The week's biggest loss, lumber, down 29 bucks, a near 5% decrease from the previous week. As Mike mentioned earlier, Mississippi Ag Commissioner Andy Gibson listened to the Brooke Rollins nomination hearing. Afterward, in a press statement, he shared a few thoughts about the candidate for USDA Ag Secretary. In that statement, Gibson said in part, quote, "I am greatly impressed with Rollins's understanding of the tremendous issues facing agriculture today. I was equally impressed with her vision for the future of agriculture and her plan to tackle serious issues, such as deploying disaster and economic assistance to farmers, engaging with solutions to fight animal disease, including bird flu, and working toward long-term prosperity for rural America. It is clear to me that Brooke Rollins understands the immediate and long-term needs of American agriculture, and I look forward to her swift confirmation by the U.S. Senate." With the advent of a new White House, Mississippi is sure to be impacted over the coming years. We spoke to Commissioner Gibson about his expectations. Sounds like there will be a close partnership. Gibson sounding somewhat encouraged. Here's some of what he had to say in a recent phone call with Farmweek.
I've been in touch with the transition team, the Trump transition team. I've been in close contact with them. In fact, I have some meetings scheduled in Washington with USDA, and our new Ag Secretary will be there in February. So I'll be going to D.C. for those meetings. And we're really excited about having a new team to work with. And I think that we're going to have a great Ag Secretary. The different Farm Service Agency positions are being filled. That's going to be critical. And one thing that we're really looking at and hoping to get redone is the way that these droughts are tracked, these drought monitors are tracked. We've seen evidence the last 2 or 3 years in Mississippi. You know, whoever's doing these drought trackers out in Nebraska, they're not taking into account a lot of the local factors that I've heard from our farmers across Mississippi that need to be taken into account. And we want to see if we can bring that into the modern era. As much technology as there is today, meteorologists know how much rain fell and where it fell, without even going to that location due to all the radar and all of that. So we're hoping to get some relief on that. And, of course, all of the relief that our farmers need in these difficult economic times. There'll be a lot of trade discussions. We're talking about new trade opportunities. And, in fact, I'm personally going to be traveling to Panama in April this coming spring. And so there's going to be a lot of discussion about new trade opportunities coming up that will benefit Mississippi agriculture. And I'm looking forward to working with the new administration.
And that's it for a deeper look into the markets. With a new administration in Washington, it's good to get an idea of what's to come, the priorities, and what will likely be big issues for the next 4 years. The ag business is getting harder, margins tightening. Time will tell if that situation improves. Mike?
Thanks, Zach. Now back to Balancing Act, our special report. Earlier, we met the key players in the Mississippi Delta where a unique research project was born. Now we go deeper, picking up with my asking a key question that's the basis of the project itself. Agricultural profitability can often be a game of inches. Every square foot matters to farmers trying to make a living. But it's a balancing act. Every acre of Delta land in production is an acre that's not available for conservation and wildlife. But what if there was a way to maintain fields for ag use while providing valuable wetlands and reducing erosion through the non-growing season? Dr. Jason Hoeksema and a team of state and federal researchers are looking into how one simple change might make a world of difference.
Mississippi Delta farmers and farms are really important for efforts to feed the world, not only our part of the world, but the corn and soybeans and other products that come from the Mississippi Delta feed big parts of our country and other parts of the world. The way that agriculture has been practiced traditionally in the Mississippi Delta, there are some potential downstream consequences of it that we should be concerned about.
Well, the only way to ensure maximum yields on a farm is to fertilize. There's quite a bit of nitrogen put on the landscape globally to maintain the yields needed to feed a growing global population.
When it rains, just by the nature of there being more fertilizer on the landscape, the rain can transport that to aquatic systems. And I think one of the main concerns there is the development of algal blooms.
And that has been shown to contribute to the dead zone in the Gulf of Mexico, which has consequences not only for wildlife and ecosystems, but for people as well.
Being a farmer, it's always been about balance because nature's in charge a lot, and runoff and the wildlife, it works together. It's always worked together for me.
I mean, you've got to take care of your place. You've got to take care of your land. I mean, it's just like your fertility. You've got to spend money to put into it so that it will be productive. Stewardship is primarily about self-preservation, but the offshoot of that is it's also good for the broader world and the broader environment. If I can keep my soil in Sunflower County and not send it down to New Orleans, everybody's happier.
But oftentimes conversations about agriculture production and conservation can be in conflict with each other, and the reality is that what's happening on the landscape is an integrated system. And so it's putting these pieces together. So we look at the landscape a little bit differently, the role of soil function beyond crop production, as well as the other ecosystem services it can provide.
Everybody's concerned with, water quality and soil quality, and that's what makes a farm. That's what, without that, we're not, if we don't take care of it, we're not going to be able to keep growing these crops.
Keeping fertilizers and other nutrients on the land where they are placed is key to reducing river runoff downstream. Dr. Hoeksema's project along the Sunflower River encourages farmers to temporarily flood their fields at the end of the growing season. These temporary wetlands serve as a barrier to runoff, retaining the soil during the rainy off-season while also promoting beneficial microbial activity. The project is a way to understand just how beneficial these wetlands may be for both the land and for the birds that use the Delta as a stopover on their long trek south for the winter.
Literally millions of migratory birds pass through the Mississippi Delta every year. The Delta is potentially a really valuable stopover site for a lot of those birds to refuel. So the Sunflower River Project, its goal is to explore how, basically what happens when we create temporary wetlands on crop fields. So we work with farmers to find a way to put water back out onto the crop fields after the crop harvest in the fall, to do that in a way that doesn't interfere too much with farm operations, but also in a way that may help migratory water birds.
This is our second year in the project, and they're really doing some studies for how the flooding that we're doing for the shorebirds is, interconnected with crop yields.
The reason we focused on the Sunflower River Basin is because there's been a lot of work in that region to develop infrastructure on farms called tailwater recovery systems, which is a series of leveling of fields and berms and ditches that allow the farmers to capture water that runs off those fields, pump it into an on-site reservoir, and reuse it. We were already grappling with the problem of how to get farmers interested in potentially, making this habitat for birds. The fact that it could have additional benefits, not only for the environment, but even for farms and farmers, it hadn't dawned on me, and it was very exciting because it made it seem like this could really happen on a larger scale.
A unique project, to say the least. Well, next week, more about the implications of the project. We'll conclude our Encore special report and learn more about how the flooding is coordinated and then how the bird habitat is analyzed afterward.
We'll discover that for all the benefits of the project, there's a cost, and there's the inevitable rush to analyze the pros and cons during a race against time before the next season planting begins.
The conclusion of Balancing Act next time on Farm Week.
Remember, if you missed a story, look for past episodes of Farm Week on our website at farmweek.tv.
And don't forget to follow us on Facebook and YouTube. We'll see you next week. Thanks for watching.